Please do not worry, as we will take over the $3 million inheritance and the apartment buildings left by your father. Kathy, my brother's wife, declared confidently. Filled with joy, or so it seemed, she smiled in front of the portrait of my father, who had passed away. She looked like the embodiment of evil. However, she was under a grave misunderstanding. Until that misunderstanding was cleared, I would patiently endure. I couldn't let all that my father left fall into the hands of such a person. My name is Sarah. I am a 45-year-old unmarried woman. Hey Sarah, could you do a final check on the blueprint that's due tomorrow? Sure, Dad. At my father's request, I started the final check on the blueprint. I work at my father's architectural firm, handling both clerical and design work. Ever since I was young, I've been interested in my father's work, aspiring to have the same career as him. For this purpose, I studied architecture and design in high school and university and joined my father's company immediately after graduating. We have continued the business together. I have been designated as the next manager by my father, and I have the trust of our employees. I have an older brother who is 5 years older than me and a liberal arts major, but he has no interest in design and is unlikely to be involved in the management or operation of the company in the future, so I am not particularly worried about the succession of the business. It is a small company with about 15 employees that my father took over from my grandfather. I intend to cherish and grow this company from then on. That's my resolution. Dad, I've finished all my work. I'll head home and start preparing dinner. Thank you, and good job for today. My father normally insists that employees leave on time unless there is a special situation. On that day, as 6 p.m. approached, most of the staff had already left for home, and only my father and I remained in the office. He always said a manager should work diligently and not slack off, and he would work late into the night every day. I have respected my father for many years for this. However, he was turning 75 that year. He was not young anymore, and I wished he would avoid overworking. Upon arriving home, the house was pitch black. My mother had died in an accident when I was in my 20s, and now it's just my father and I. As I turned on the light and was about to start preparing dinner, I heard the door opening. "Oh, Sarah, are you here?" It was the voice of Kathy, my brother's wife. I wondered what she needed at dinner time. "What brings you here so late?" "I don't care about you." "Where's your dad?" I honestly couldn't feel any affection from Kathy's harsh words. It seemed she hasn't had very good feelings toward me since before she married my brother. "Don't depend on your parents and live a sloppy life. Don't expect to rely on us when you get older," she would often say. I live independently without relying on my father and have no intention of asking my brother and his wife for help in my old age. But arguing is pointless. No matter what I say, she doesn't listen. She continued her barrage of words. "Claiming you're not dependent while you have a job thanks to your father's business? You can't predict the future as you age. You should save up for retirement early." She would always criticize me at every opportunity. After speaking with her, I realized that talking to someone who harbors ill feelings toward me is meaningless. Since then, I've tried to avoid her as much as possible. My brother got married in his 40s, so they don't have children. Yet, she had the audacity to tell me, being unable to have even one child, "You're a burden to society." That statement applies to her as well, but I never said it out loud. That's because my brother told me Kathy once had an illness and can't have children because of that. So, please avoid that topic. I know there's a difference between a person who can't have children even though he or she wants it and a person who can wish for it but decided not to. But still, I couldn't comprehend what made my brother decide to marry her. Around that time, question marks seemed to be floating above my head all the time. Oh, how I detested them. "So, when will your dad be returning home?" "Dad will likely be home late tonight. He said he would stop by the apartment first." That apartment, huh?" Kathy said with a sly smile. "That apartment was originally passed down from my grandfather to my father. While we no longer owned it, Dad still cherished it as a property I received from my dad and regularly checked on it. He even actively did the cleaning and weeding that the property management company usually handled, apparently to the residents' delight. Hearing that Dad wouldn't be back soon, Kathy quickly gathered her things and began to prepare to leave. What could her true purpose be? Make sure you tell your dad that I came to check on him. Don't forget. After giving me these instructions, Kathy looked around the house, then left. Dad, Kathy came over. I wonder what she wanted. I don't know. She came over when I was alone before, but she just sat there and didn't really do anything. Honestly, I'm glad I wasn't home, my father said with a wry smile. Neither Dad nor I could grasp her true intentions. Well, she is a bit odd, so maybe her motives are incomprehensible to us normal folks. But I don't mind it much. Sarah, dinner was delicious today as well. I'm always grateful, Father said with more gratitude than usual. What's with you all of a sudden? It feels weird. I joked, and my father laughed shyly. You've become so reliable, Sarah. Maybe it's about time for me to retire. What are you talking about? I still have so much to learn from you, Dad. Is that so? Well, I guess I'll take a bath and head to bed. Good night. Good night. A week later, he suddenly collapsed at work. At the time, I was in a meeting at a client's office and received an urgent call from a colleague. Sarah, the boss. My father, unconscious, was rushed to the hospital. I immediately wrapped up my work and headed to the hospital, called my brother right away, and then contacted Kathy. My brother promised to come to the hospital quickly, but Kathy's response was, do I need to go there? You're there, aren't you, Sarah? What? To have such a reaction when your father-in-law is in critical condition. However, it was pointless to argue now. I tried to remain calm and persuade her. Actually, Dad's condition is quite critical. At least come to say goodbye. You used to visit my father often, didn't you? But an unexpected response came back. Yeah, I was just trying to be in his good books, hoping to get some information about the inheritance. Hearing Kathy say that so nonchalantly, I was speechless. I'm not good with hospitals. And if there's a funeral, I need to get my hair and nails done. I don't have time to go to the hospital. Her utterly impossible attitude was brimming with vitality. This person is simply no good. Understood, then never mind. I couldn't contain my anger and raised my voice. I hoped this outrage would make her reflect, even if just a little. But the response that came back was this: contact me after he passes away. I'm busy too. Her dismissive tone increased my anger toward her. She was more than just an unpleasant person. Being legally recognized as family, as sisters with such a person, was unbearable. 2 hours after that call, my father passed away quietly. He was 75 years old. We immediately began arranging the wake and the funeral. There wasn't even time for the family to mourn due to the rush of various preparations. Despite this, my brother, who should be fulfilling his duty as the chief mourner, seemed emotionally detached. Sarah, did Dad have any special illness? His passing seemed so sudden. What exactly does the chief mourner do? Do you know? Wait, I have to give a speech. That's such a hassle. At 50 years old, my brother was failing to fulfill his role as the chief mourner. I was angered by his nonchalant remarks, but I was even more astonished by Kathy's attitude. Why should I, as the wife of the eldest son, have to step forward? I hate troublesome things. You do it. With that, she immediately disappeared to the back. I was also scrambling with greeting the attendees, detailed meetings with the funeral home, and interactions with the company. In the midst of all this business, her indifference was unbearable. I could understand feeling inconvenienced since he wasn't her own parent, but such an attitude was inexcusable. My anger turned to sadness. Well, Kathy has her own difficulties, too. Sarah, please handle her part as well. My brother was always taking Kathy's side. Does he even know the rude things his wife has said? Those words nearly escaped my lips, but I felt it was futile to inform my ineffectual brother of the reality. In the end, I ignored my brother and his wife and focused on fulfilling my duties. With the help of relatives, we managed to complete the funeral without incident. It was during the first 7 days of mourning when the relatives gathered again, sharing drinks. He passed away without suffering, so he must be content now. The one who spoke to me was my father's younger sister, my aunt, who was 15 years his junior, still young at 60. To me, my aunt was like a sister whom I could talk to about anything, despite our age difference. As my aunt and I were reminiscing, Kathy suddenly stood in front of us, exuding the aura of a villain from a drama. If this were a drama, even someone who just tuned in would immediately know she's the antagonist. Shall we get started? What are you starting? I tilted my head, not grasping her intention. It's about inheritance. My husband is the eldest son, so the $3 million inheritance and that apartment are rightfully ours. I checked the bank book the other day. My aunt and I were surprised by this abrupt talk of inheritance, exchanging glances. How did she check the bank book, which was securely locked away in the depth of a safe? We were at a loss for words. Kathy, presuming to control the situation, confidently continued. You have the company and this house, don't you? What more could you want? Well, that's... Before I could explain, she unilaterally pushed on with her agenda. Next to her, my brother, as if uninterested, simply kept drinking silently. Maybe I'll raise the apartment rent a bit. If the rental income increases, our life will be easier. Or maybe we could rebuild it. Your dad really left us a valuable inheritance. Her loud voice echoed, and the relatives fell into a hushed silence. But then someone couldn't suppress a laugh. One uncontrollable laugh spread to others, who began to look down, covering their faces with handkerchiefs. Then my aunt whispered to me, "Is she joking? If you have something to say, speak up." Kathy glared at my aunt with her arms crossed, looking imperious. My aunt and I could only offer a wry smile. Taking a deep breath, I began to explain the situation. Kathy, there is no inheritance left for my brother to receive." "What do you mean?" "There's no way there is nothing. Are you trying to trick me?" Kathy's face, once triumphant, now filled with anger. "The circumstances are different. The apartment belongs to my aunt, and I have taken over the company. The inheritance from Dad has already been passed on completely, so there is nothing left for my brother to inherit now." "What? That's news to me. I haven't been informed of anything at all. Since this was decided before my brother married Kathy, it's understandable that she didn't know. Here's the situation. It was only natural for my father to want to pass the company to me after years of working with him. I had initially resisted, feeling it to be a heavy responsibility, but it was very important to him. He had a strong desire to pass his business on to his own flesh and blood. When I decided to take over the management, we went through the proper legal procedures for inheritance with a lawyer. As for the apartment, it's Dad's lifetime gift to my aunt and uncle, a decision made when Grandpa passed away. Everything about the company has been settled, and my brother agreed when it was decided that I would take over. Lastly, the ownership of this family home has also been transferred to my name. So, there is really nothing left for my brother to inherit now. As I carefully explained the details, my brother seemed to recall something and began to speak. Now I remember. Dad gave me a substantial amount of money as a lifetime gift or something. Was that what it was? I got a lot of money all at once and just spent it without much thought. Ahaha. Indeed, my brother used to spend quite lavishly when he was single. He would travel overseas more than 3 times a year, his taste in brands significantly upgraded, and it seemed he would change cars several times a year. So the apartment is in Andy's name. I always thought I would inherit it. My brother must have conveyed such information to Kathy without verifying it. Unaware of the true circumstances of the money he received amounting to nearly $1 million, he had spent almost all of it without a second thought. This was easy to imagine. So what about the bank book with the $3 million in it? That's an old bank book from the company that's no longer in use. But why do you ask? It should have been stored in the safe. That old safe. Perhaps it had been opened with a thin tool of some sort. If so, that would be quite a feat. My aunt frowned and stared at Kathy. At that moment, my brother murmured quietly, "Did Dad hate me?" "What?" I let out an exasperated voice at his unexpected remark. "Because it's just Sarah who gets the special treatment. I've already spent all my money and I have none left. You'll have the house and the company." To such a childish remark, my aunt stood up. "You're an adult now. Why would you say such things? Do you know how hard Sarah worked to take over the company?" "Auntie." My aunt understood the struggles and efforts I had gone through, knowing that my decision to take over the company was not made lightly. She spoke in my defense for that reason. "The financial hardship you're facing is the result of your own actions. It's only natural that your money would run out if you lived so lavishly." I remember Dad frequently worrying about my brother's extravagant lifestyle. Giving him cash might have been a mistake. If such wastefulness continued, bankruptcy would be inevitable sooner or later. I shared his concerns, and my brother used up the lifetime gift he received from Dad within a few years. Not leaving cash behind now is, in a way, a lesson from Dad. One should enjoy luxury from income earned by one's own work, not from unexpected money. My aunt's stern advice made my brother hang his head. However, Kathy was not convinced. "I've never heard of anything like that. Why am I the only one who doesn't know? I can't believe the apartment wasn't his anymore." "That's because it happened before you came into the family. I'm the wife of the eldest son, and I wasn't informed at all. Dad didn't teach me anything." This is strange. Watching Kathy's outburst, it was clear that my father had not discussed the inheritance with her, but I could somewhat understand his intentions. Maybe he had always seen through Kathy's greedy nature, her significant attachment to money. "There's nothing strange about this. It's Dad's will." At my calm response, Kathy's eyes widened and she raised her voice. "I won't accept this. I'll sue you. But you're not even in a position to inherit, so I don't think you have any right to reclaim anything." Hearing my logical statement, Kathy became furious. She knocked over a vase that was a keepsake from our mother, shattered the glasses on the table, and rampaged around, screaming incoherently. What was supposed to be a gathering for my father's memorial turned into an unexpected uproar. Eventually, my brother and other relatives had to intervene to calm her down, and the gathering came to a somewhat peaceful end. "Kathy, I'll send you the bill for the broken vase and glasses later. Wrecking someone's house is not acceptable." "Shut up, you money grubber." With those words, Kathy hastily left the house with my brother in tow. Honestly, if anyone's a money grubber, it's her. It's astonishing how money can change a person so grotesquely. It was a day when I fully realized the true horror of Kathy's nature. In the end, my brother and Kathy got divorced. Surprisingly, the initiative for the divorce came from my brother, who was always hesitant in making decisions. After witnessing her obsession with money, I became scared to be with her. My brother said with a pale face that seemed to indicate he had no visible wealth left and seemed to wonder what would have become of him if he had. Kathy, who was a housewife, claimed she couldn't survive if they got divorced. But then we found out something about her. Actually, Kathy had a criminal record for marriage fraud before we got married. When I brought that up with the lawyer and filed for divorce, she surprisingly agreed to it easily. I was shocked to learn about her unexpected past. However, considering her abnormal fixation on money, perhaps it's not surprising she had some issues. To be honest, I'm relieved that the family ties with such a person have been severed. Yet, I can't help but worry about my brother's lack of judgment. As his sister, I feel concerned. "Sarah, boss. You have a visitor." I stood up at the call from an employee. "There's no need to start calling me boss." I still feel a bit embarrassed by the title, but I am also aware of the grave responsibility I hold to protect this company and its employees. The CEO is the boss. Right, boss? We're all looking forward to the next payday. I can't help but smile at another employee's joke. You all really love your jokes. I'm happy to be recognized as their leader. Dad, I swear I will protect this company. With that resolve in my heart, I hand my business card, printed with President and CEO, to the visitor.